Hey guys, just before we get into this video, I do want to just give a quick update on the giveaway. I know it's supposed to be today that we announced it, but I have realised that I am going to be in London at the time this video gets released, and I will have been in London for 2 days before that. So there's no way that I can figure out everyone that's entered into the draw and add it onto the start of this video. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to move the draw to Monday's video, and we will announce the winner at the start of that video instead. So apologies for those who are obviously quite keen to know if they've won or not and are just kind of waiting to see, but the announcement will be made on Monday now, because otherwise I won't be able to include anyone who puts their name down on my video between now, which is Sunday when I'm recording this video, and probably, you know, Saturday when I get back next week. So just so you guys are aware, the announcement will now be made on Monday. But let's get into the video now. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Warframe video, where today we are talking credits. Now, someone did ask me following my ultimate eidolon guide for an ultimate profit taker guide, so that is what this video is going to encompass. I thought I would just do a start to finish of farming up credits, where you can get the stuff from, how you can get the stuff, and, you know, start to finish, beginner to end game, we are going to cover credit farming. So without further ado, let's hop into the video and take a look at some of the builds and locations that you can farm credits throughout the game. So once you've finished the intro missions in the game, your primary objective for farming credits is going to be getting to Neptune. Now obviously that's going to take a while. You need to unlock some nodes along the way and basically just path your way around until you get to the Index Endurance mission. Now this is the first real credit mission that you are going to be reaching in the game, and by the time you get here you want to have yourself a good enough build to do the high level index missions on solo. So we are going to go ahead and outline that build and explain kind of in the meantime where your credit and endo income is going to come from in order to produce this build. So having very limited access to missions in the star chart, you are going to be wanting to sell any duplicate mods that you might have picked up. You can either sell those for credits or endo, whichever you need at the time. You can also go ahead, and if you open up your equipment and inventory, you will find that you are picking up quite a few duplicate items such as harrow chassis or even gorgon blueprints. Something like that. They do all sell for platinum. I haven't actually sold mine for a while. I have 291. Selling all of those gets me over 1 million credits. So they do actually stack up at the end of the day and are a very good source of early credit income. So do bear that in mind when you're doing this. Alright guys, so we're going to quickly run through this early game build here. Now I do want to point out that the kind of level that you are going to be at this point, the minimum level requirement to get to the index is going to be MR3, as you need to be MR3 in order to complete Nata, which is the quest that you need to do in order to do the Neptune Junction, which requires you to be MR3. So the gear that I'm going to be outlining here is going to sit around that level. However, obviously if you are a higher level and you have access to better gear, then please use that and don't just copy this build completely, because you can improve it greatly. And what I will say right now is that this build is really only to get us to the next build. It is not something we're going to be using long term at all. So you want to invest as little as possible into it so that you can obviously save up later on down the line. So yeah, first of all, you want to have a normal Rhino. Rhino Prime, not necessary at all. I don't have normal Rhino because I've put him through the helmet. So yeah. We've got ourselves Rhino Prime here. I do not have an Orokin reactor on this yet, so this should mimic fairly well what you guys are going to have. And you can see here I've just got 4 mods on, and that is it. So you've got Steel Fiber, Intensify, Enemy Sense, Streamline, and then I've also got Deadeye on here. You do not need Deadeye, however, if you have it, it always helps because we are going to be using a sniper rifle. You could quite comfortably put something like Steel Charge on, which will allow you to get some more capacity for some extra mods. But I have just gone with Deadeye because I have it, and it will help me out a bit here. We do have no health mods on this whatsoever, which is actually, you know, not a terrible thing when we're going into the index. We are going to be relying solely on the health that our second ability grants us, the Overguard on this. This is going to basically negate status damage as well as, you know, any kind of health reduction that we're going to be getting from picking up the tokens that are going to be dropping in the index, and we'll kind of explain that as we go through the gameplay footage in a second. And this is pretty much the only ability that we're going to be using for this whole thing. We're not going to be using Raw at all. We're not going to be using Rhino Stomp or Rhino Charge. We are just going to be using Iron Skin and our primary weapon. So yeah, that's basically it. Enemy sense is a quality of life mod. If you don't have it, it's not strictly speaking a problem, but it does allow you to track down enemies much faster and kill them and complete the mission faster as well. In terms of our primary weapon, we are running the Vectis. Now, the Vectis isn't the best sniper rifle in the game, obviously. If you do have access to the Rubico, if you're MR6 or above at this point, then I would highly recommend using that, as the type of damage that the Rubico does is going to be much better against the type of enemies that we are going to be facing in the Index. However, as I said, we are focusing on gear that is going to be around the MR3 requirement level, and the Vectis can be obtained as early as MR2. So the build we've got for this does require one Orokin Catalyst. That is the only time we're going to be using Platinum in this build. And all you want to be doing on this build is basically upping your damage with mods like Serration. You want to be upping your multi-shot with stuff like Split Chamber. And you want to be having radiation damage, which can be earned by putting on Stormbringer and Hellfire. So electricity damage and heat damage. Then you just want to max out your crit. So we've got Point Strike and we've got Vital Sense on there. Most of these mods you will have obtained along the way. However, the ones that you may not have picked up are Split Chamber and Vital Sense. If you do not have these, I would recommend just running Puzzle Rooms on the Void. These will drop Split Chamber and Vital Sense fairly frequently, but you know, you will have to farm them quite a bit if you do not already have them or have happened to pick them up along the way. Bear in mind, you do not need these mods maxed out as I have shown here. Any kind of combination will work. Get it to the point where it is comfortable for you. That's just something to note there. If you do happen to have access to a focus tree, which, you know, you probably don't at this stage, maybe, then I would recommend maybe going for Zenuric first. That's kind of what I tell players, is to maybe go Zenuric, either Zenuric, Unairu, or Madurai first. And in Zenuric, you can go ahead and get yourselves over to Wellspring and Hardened Wellspring, which are going to basically increase your strength, which is going to improve our invulnerability on our second ability as Rhino. So yeah, that pretty much outlines the whole build, guys. What we'll do now, we'll do a quick little tester run in the Index, the high-level Index. That's all we're going to be focusing on this video. And then we will move on to kind of the mid-tier build, I guess, before we move on to the final profit taker nonsense. So yeah, let's hop into an example run now. Okay guys, so as we said, we are going to be doing the high risk investment here, which is going to require us to get 100 index points deposited into our, or their bank, I guess. So yeah, we're going to go ahead. You need 50,000 credits to begin with on this, which as we said, you should probably be gaining through selling mods or selling parts that you have picked up. So we're going to go ahead and do that and load into the mission. Now, there are 2 tile sets that you can get on the Index. One is outside, one is inside. Generally speaking, I prefer the outside one. I find it a bit easier to find enemies and just bank points generally, but this one will suffice just fine. So what we want to do, first of all, we want to go ahead and sit at one of the energy points. Now, I have Zenuric, so I get my first energy for free, but I'll do it as if I didn't have Zenuric on. And just wait for an energy orb to spawn. There we go. Then I can activate my Iron Skin, and I am just going to head down to the enemy side of the map to try and tempt in the enemies this way, and also bring in my Spectres so that they die near me. Now, I want to be aiming for headshots here, and as you can see, we can comfortably one-shot enemies. And the goal here is going to be to pick up 15 of these tokens. So right now I have 1. That's 2, that's 3, there's 4. The reason we're picking up 15 is because that is going to provide us with a bonus that essentially provides us with the biggest kind of percentage increase over the amount of index points that we actually have. I'll explain that a bit more as we move forward. But as you can see on the left hand side there, I have 6 index points and my banking bonus is +2. Ooh, bit of lag there. Don't know what happened. So essentially, if I was to bank at 6 points and having 2 banking bonus points, I would get an increase of 25%. Now you'll see here when I get to 10 index points, that will go up again. So let's just go ahead. Oh, there we go. So we've now got +4. So 10 + 4, we're getting ourselves 40% right there. That's not one. This guy is, though. Where's it dropped? I can't see it. Oh well. Let's try and get another one. Good stuff. So we're up to 14, so one more, and you will see that our bonus goes up again. 15 plus 8. So that's nearing 50% increase now when we have 15 points. So we're going to go ahead and bank that before our time runs out. And you see our time has then gone back up. Once we spawn, we want to grab ourselves some ammo and simply head back over to the previous position we were in. And we are going to rinse and repeat. I do not know where this lag is coming from. It's kind of annoying. Hopefully my computer isn't frying itself. And yeah, basically we're just going to pick up another 23 points. The damage on this Vectis should carry you pretty much the whole way through. Oh, can't get that for some reason. There we go. So what I'm going to do, guys, I am just going to rinse and repeat this until we finish. And yeah, I'll kind of see you at the end of the mission. Alright guys, here's our last little bank here. And yeah, you can see here we got ourselves an extra 250k, so that's actually a 200,000 credit profit from that. We'll get out at that point, I think. You can see we didn't die. 94 points and 55 kills. Pretty good. What you want to bear in mind is that towards the end, do not expect your Vectis to be one-shotting the enemy still. It will drop off a bit and you may need 3 or even 4 shots at some point to kill a single enemy, but it's still worth it just for, you know, the amount of credits that you get for this and the cheapness of the build itself. So if we have a look at the stats of that mission, and we take a look at progression, we can see that took me about 7.5 minutes, and we got ourselves, yeah, an extra 200,000 credits from that, as well as some gold mods which we can sell. Now you can see obviously I got 450 credits. That is because this is actually the first mission that I have done today. So yeah, bear that in mind. But yeah, it's a very, very good early build and an early mission that you can get yourselves a decent amount of credits for ranking up your mods or, you know, doing whatever. So without further ado, let's kind of improve this build now and move on to the mid-game. Okay guys, so moving into kind of the mid-game area, we are only going to be changing one thing about this build. I haven't changed anything on my Rhino build. Obviously, once you've gathered up more mods, you can improve this, but for the sake of the video and making this a bit quicker, we're just going to leave this be, and we are going to focus on our primary weapon only. I have now upgraded to the Rubico Prime. This is an MR12 weapon, so you're going to need to be a bit higher if you want to get your hands on this. Now, there are alternative weapons that you can use in the meantime. However, to be honest, I probably wouldn't bother investing in much else at this point, and getting to the Rubico Prime should probably be an objective that you should be working towards if you are keen on farming credits quickly. Now, we are going to be doing the high risk index again on solo. However, this time our goal is going to be to bring our time right down. We're going to be aiming for the 5-minute mark now, or around that point, with our Rubico Prime here, as opposed to when we used the Vectis and we were around the 7.5 minutes. So this is the kind of build that you want to aim for on your Rubico. Now, some of these builds are not strictly speaking necessary, and the primary Merciless also isn't strictly speaking necessary at all. Ambush Optics, not necessary. Just the mods that we're going to be looking at here are what you want to use, and you could even sub out Galvanized Chamber with just normal Split Chamber again if you want. But yeah, basically, similarly to our Vectis build, this is just revolving again around radiation damage, multi-shot, and then, yeah, we've got crit chance and a bit of fire rate as well. Fire rate actually does help out quite a lot with doing this, so do bear that in mind. But you can see with the Rubico Prime, we are guaranteed a critical hit on this, and we have a very good critical multiplier as well. So yeah, for doing this mission, I would suggest using the Rubico Prime. I find it to be kind of the easiest to use. It's very ammo efficient, it's very quick, it has innate punch through, so, you know, you can hit enemies behind each other, which is always nice. So yeah, it's just really a good go-to weapon. But like I said, there are plenty of other options out there, and if you do have a particular favorite weapon that you like to use, it can always, basically, be modded to the point where you can do the index mission up to a fairly high level. So, without further ado, let's hop into another high-risk index and see how fast we can get it done now that we have our fancy Rubico. Alright guys, so we're on the last little bit here of the index with our Rubico, and as you can see, you know, I'm not even double scoped for the extra damage, and we are still one-shotting enemies bar the bursters, which do have quite a healthy shield, but yeah, everything else is dying instantly still. And yeah, we are able to collect points much faster. We are also now in the outside tile set, as you can see, which, as I said, I find to be the better tile set out of the two. Finding enemies is much easier. Getting your Spectres over to the enemy side of the map is much faster. There we go. Let's get out and see how fast we did that. It certainly felt faster. I'm not sure how much faster. 4 minutes and 38 seconds. So we've shaved off 3 minutes from our previous build just by upgrading our weapon to the Rubico Prime. So, as I said, you know, you don't need to go as far as the Rubico Prime or the build that I showed, but something moving up to that point will allow you to farm credits much, much faster. So, again, we got ourselves the 200k credits, although I'm really not sure why I'm getting 450 for this. Credit reward return, 250. Yeah, don't know. But either way, very good way to get credits, especially for the mid game. And it is at this point that I would say we want to be aiming towards getting our profit taker farm ready. Okay guys, so getting to the profit taker is not the easiest task in the world. In fact, it can be pretty tedious and drawn out. So the first thing that you are going to want to do during your early game credit farming and mid game farming is going to be to level up Solaris United. Once you get to rank 5 with Solaris United, you will gain access to the operation bounties in the back room at this little table here. If we go ahead and select this on briefing, we can see we have the choice of profit taker and exploiter. We're going to leave exploiter for today. I will do a video on the exploiter orb in the future. For now, we're going to focus on the profit taker, as that is the preferred method of farming credits, and also standing with Little Duck, who you can see in the corner over there, if you happen to want to do it this way and not do the Nama bounties on Earth, as I have said in previous videos. So on here we have 4 missions. You are going to need to complete the first 3 phases before you can hit phase 4, which is where we are going to take down the profit taker. So it's going to take you a while to get up here. You need a lot of standing to get to Old Mate, and obviously, you know, during that time you are going to want to be collecting all of the stuff that you need to be able to do this fight well. So we'll quickly run through what you want to be aiming for, and then we'll show 2 builds. One is an earlier build, which I have shown on my channel a while ago, which utilizes the Rubico Prime, the same Rubico Prime that we have been using this entire time, and also the Zenith, which is kind of the later game build that you can use to kind of speed up the fight a bit. Not a whole lot, but a bit. So let's just run through all the gear that we are going to be wanting to collect and have in order to make the best use of the profit taker farm. Okay guys, so one thing to note before you get into this is that the profit taker rewards drop from the profit taker itself. So the credits that drop come from the profit taker and do not drop at the end of the mission, such as the index does, right? So what we can do is we can utilize various tools that will actually increase the drops from enemies, thereby increasing the amount of credits we get at the end of the mission. And hence, you are going to want to get your hands on Chroma. Either Chroma or Chroma Prime, it doesn't matter, although I find Chroma Prime the much easier to get, to be honest. It is easier to just farm up the platinum and buy a Chroma Prime than it is to get all the stuff that you need for a normal Chroma. So do bear that in mind when you decide which one you perhaps want to go for. But yeah, we can utilize Chroma's 4th ability, his effigy, to double the credit drops of enemies. So basically, if we are standing within the range of effigy and we pick up credits, we will gain double the credit drop. Now the profit taker drops 125,000 base credits. So if we had effigy up, we are going to pick up 250,000. If we then have a credit booster on, we will pick up 500,000. And we are going to also be running a Smeaty Kavat, which we will go and have a look at in a second, which can then double, triple, quadruple, or even quintuple our rewards if you get insanely lucky, up to kind of a maximum of, well, let's see, it'll probably be around the 8 million mark, I imagine, if you get extremely lucky. However, 1 million to 2 million from the Kavat, I have had a fair few times. And, you know, that is without even taking into account double credit weekends. If you do this on a double credit weekend, you're getting 1 million credits per run, and our aim here is to try and get our time down below 3 minutes. If you are doing this mission and it's taking you much longer than that, then really you're not actually getting many more credits than if you were to just do the index as we showed, because the load in, load out times are going to be significantly increased. So do bear that in mind when you're doing this. Make sure that you have a build that is faster than if you were to just farm normal index missions. Obviously you get other rewards from the profit taker as well, but just so you're aware that if you are solely farming credits and you're not interested in anything else, make sure that you have a build that is capable of increasing your time to a point where it will be faster than the index. Otherwise, it is just not worth doing, really. So without further ado, let's just run through all the gear that you want to collect for this kind of end game credit farming method. Alright guys, so the biggest issue with fighting the profit taker is its shielding. Now the shield works on a rotating element cycle, which means that whatever element the profit taker is displaying, we need to deal that damage to the shield in order to take it down. Now this element will rotate after we've done so much damage, or it will rotate if we use our operator's amp to rotate it manually. Now, we want to be doing that as little as possible because it's going to increase the time it takes to fight Prophet Taker drastically if we have to keep doing that. So, on our 3 weapons that we are using here, we want to make sure that we cover off as many elements as possible, and as a rule of thumb, I would make sure to have at least 2 different elements on each of these weapons. 3 if possible. However, for the purposes of this video, we are just going to be doing 2 elements per video, and then utilizing Smite in order to gain a further element on all of our weapons. So, something we'll come into in a second. But first of all, let's just run through each of these weapons in turn and kind of explain what they're going to be used for and when. So the Rubico Prime here, which we already have, I have adapted a bit further here so that we have the elements that we want. I have gone ahead and put on Corrosive and Heat on our primary weapon. This is generally what I tend to go for. So you should already have this really set up from our previous sort of mid-game stage. So assuming that, let's kind of move on to our secondary weapon. So for my secondary weapon, I have gone with the Latum. Now, as I said, you want a weapon that realistically can get 3 elements on if possible, and the majority of those are going to be Kuva or Tenet weapons. I know the Tenet Diplos is a very popular choice right now, but I thought I'd go with a weapon that, to be honest, I have actually been using quite a lot recently, and have come to use for Prophet Taker fights, because it does do a lot of damage still just on its normal fire mode. So yeah, we are going to be using the Latum here, and I've gone ahead and put gas and cold on here. So I've got primed heated charge on with deep freeze and then pistol pestilence to get the cold and gas damage. So we've got 2 more elements covered off there. Everything else geared towards multi-shot and just raw damage, similarly to our Rubico. For our melee weapon, guys, we are going to be using an Exodia Contagion Zor. Now, I do have a video for that on my channel. I will leave a link down below in the description to my guides. It will be in there somewhere, so you can go ahead and have a look at that video. But just quickly, I always get asked it. So the link that we're using here is the Vargeet 2 Ruhang, the Korb Grip, and the Rabvi Strike. Now, the Strike you probably just want to swap out with one that you perhaps have a Riven mod for, if entirely possible. Some of these Zors have very high Riven dispositions, the Rabvi being one of them, and they can get hugely increased damage from Riven mods. So if we take a look at our Rabvi here, I've gone ahead and got this Riven mod, which I rolled myself. It has increased crit chance, melee damage with a negative, so huge stat increases here. I am pretty much guaranteed an orange crit every single time, nearly 9 out of 10. And yeah, my crit multiplier is pretty high as well, just from Organ Shatter. And then what we want to do is we want to cover off quite a few elements on this Zor. This Zor is primarily where the majority of our damage is going to be coming from. So anything to do with impact, slash, or even puncture, I know it doesn't look like it's doing a lot, but it will, we are going to be using our Zor for. So anytime we see those come up on the Prophet Taker, that's what we're going to be doing. Now, I have Viral and Electricity on here. Now, some of you might be wondering, why the hell am I running Viral when I already get viral damage from Exodia Contagion? And the reason is, it's kind of weird. You have to hit the Prophet Taker in a very specific spot in order to do viral damage without having viral damage on the weapon itself. It is somewhere underneath and like up the middle. You have to hit a headshot kind of thing. And it's pretty tricky to do. So in order to save myself the hassle of that, I have just gone ahead and put Viral on here and Electricity as well, in order that I don't have to think about doing that and I can just, you know, speed myself up a bit that way. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going for here. I've got Berserker Fury on because it does increase my attack speed. You will just naturally kill enemies with this because of the blast radius on it, so it's always worth having some extra speed on there. And yeah, really, this is where the bulk of our damage against the Prophet Taker is going to be coming from. So the next thing that I would consider getting is your Unairu skill tree or focus tree, fairly maxed out, although the only thing really that we're going to be making use of here is Poise. Now, this is basically a poor man's primed sure-footed. We can go in and out of our operator and become immune to staggers, slows, and knockdowns for 40 seconds, which, for those of you who might have already fought the Prophet Taker, you will know this happens a lot. So having this on is actually really, really useful. Alright guys, so we now come to our Warframe, the last thing on this sort of front page bit before we go into the other bits and bobs that you're going to need. Now Chroma is an insanely good weapons platform frame. He is also incredibly tanky and will not die, which makes him an ideal choice for doing Profit Taker. Even if we ignore the fact that he can double the credit output of Profit Taker, he is still very good for this type of mission. So let's just take a look here at what kind of build we are running and how it is going to work. So first of all, there are 3 former on this build. Now this is primarily to get preparation on as well as prime flow, because if we start with max energy, we should never really need to use any energy pads or anything like that throughout the entire fight, so that's why we've done that. We've also put vigorous swap on here since we are going to be swapping between our weapons loads, because obviously we're going to need to cover off all the elements that are popping up, and gaining that extra 165% damage is actually going to be very significant indeed. Now I have also gone ahead and infused Smite onto Chroma's first ability. You get this by putting Oberon through the helmet on your ship. And what this is going to do is it is going to provide radiation damage to every single one of our weapons. So if radiation happens to come up on the Profit Taker's shield, doesn't matter what weapon we're using, it is going to be able to deal radiation damage, which ticks another element off of our list. Now you can see here I do have 2 arcanes on. I do have an arcane grace. If you can't afford an arcane grace, it doesn't matter too much. I would maybe just run something like Guardian if you have it. If you don't have Guardian, you can run Arcanes on your Operator, which will help you to stay alive as well. But to be honest, Grace seems to be the best one for me on this particular build. And then I've also gone for Nullifier. The Profit Taker will throw out magnetic status effects a lot, so having Nullifier will prevent you from losing all of your energy during the fight. Everything else here is geared towards duration and strength. Range can be completely sacked because our 4th ability, Effigy, although it does have a range, as long as we are sat within that range, it doesn't really matter where we are. If we're picking up the credits within the Effigy, we'll get double. So even if the Profit Taker doesn't die within Effigy, if we pick up the credits, it will still double. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, as we said earlier, the Profit Taker drops its rewards itself, not as a mission reward, so we can utilize a Smeed to Kavat to potentially double again, and double again, the credit drops that we are going to be getting from it. So here is my fairly not so good looking Smeed to Kavat. If we take a look at the build, we basically want this thing to stay alive as long as possible, and I have used 2 former and a reactor to achieve this. The key mods that you want on here are going to be Charm, so that's the one that basically allows us to get the double drop reward. Then we also want Tech Enhance, which is going to increase the duration of that Charm ability. And this is actually very important for this fight, because if you happen to get into the mission and you have a double drop reward from your Kavat at the very start of the mission, you can theoretically do the whole fight within the time it takes for this ability to run its full course. So if you have the best possible build and you load into the mission and you happen to get the buff very early on, you should be able to complete it in the given time and get the double rewards from the Profit Taker. That's the plan anyway. Everything else here geared towards health and a bit more utility. So Fetch is going to drag in the credits that drop from the Profit Taker. Very important mod. We then also have Link Health and Link Armor. Link Armor is going to make our pet very tanky with the Chroma that we have on, as well as obviously Link Health. We have a lot of health on Chroma as well. We then also have Synth Fiber on here, which is going to give us even more armor for our companion when we pick up health orbs. We also have Tech Assault, which is basically going to give our Kavat a 60% chance to just never die, which is always very good. And then we got Primed Animal Instinct on here, not strictly speaking necessary at all, but I just have it on for my general build anyway. So in terms of our gear, you should have an Arc Gun Deployer since you've obviously completed the missions to get to Profit Taker, and you will get the Arc Gun Deployer as part of that. You should also maybe get some Squad Energy Restores just in case, and especially if you do not have Arcane Nullifier, as you will want to keep your 3rd ability Vex Armor up at all times on your Chroma if possible. You can also utilize your On-Call Crewmate as well, which we will be doing, and I will run through the On-Call Crewmate's build in a second after we've just gone through the rest of our build here, including our Arc Gun and Arc Wing. So yeah, without further ado, let's maybe just hop into that, and then we'll take a look at why the On-Call Crewmate can be quite useful for this. Alright guys, so for your Arc Wing it doesn't matter too much, but I would recommend maybe boosting the speed up a bit by using Hyperion thrusters, and then giving yourself some armor and some health. That's really all you need for this. We're not really going to be using any abilities, so efficiency doesn't matter too much either. You can obviously improve your blink cooldown by utilizing intrinsics from Railjack, but all in all it doesn't matter too much. As long as you have a fast Arc Wing, you should be just fine. For our heavy weapon, I am going to be using the Morzalon. Now, the Morzalon actually is very, very good at doing this. There are better weapons out there. The Velocitus can be used to great effect on these missions, but the Morzalon you can get completely free after you have got yourself a Necromech. So you can buy it without the Necromech if you want, but if you just build yourself a Necromech, you will get this weapon for free, and you'll need a Necromech at some point anyway to do the new war, so I would recommend getting your hands on it sooner rather than later. This build we have gone ahead and put 2 Former on, although I do not have a Max True eidolon barrel on here. Still though, it does the job just fine. One important thing to note on here, again, you want to be going for radiation damage because the Prophet Taker is weak to radiation damage. And this will benefit as well from our Smite infusion that's on our Chroma. We will up the radiation damage that we are dealing. Also, you definitely want to have ammo chain on here, which is going to increase our maximum ammo. Now, the reason that this is important is because your Arc Gun will have a cooldown when you put it away. That cooldown is going to be based on how much, the percentage of ammunition that you use. So the more ammunition that we have, the less the cooldown will be, because obviously we will end up using a lesser percentage of the maximum ammo. So bear in mind, this is a really important thing to have on. Everything else here geared towards multi-shot, fire rate, and crit chance, again with that radiation damage there. So just before we get on to the On-Call Crewmate, there's a couple more things I want to run through about Chroma. The first one is that I do have Archon shards on here, although they are not strictly speaking necessary. We have 2 for ability strength, 1 for casting speed, and then 2 for health. These are just quality of life changes, to be honest. The 20% strength is not going to impact you all that much. The casting speed is quite nice, but again, not strictly speaking necessary. And the health, again, not necessary because we are pretty tanky as it is, but it just helps to be safe. The second thing that I want to talk about with our Chroma is the element type that you are running based on your emissive energy type. So you can see here, I am running green, which is going to come to Toxin, which is important for our second ability, Elemental Ward, because what this is going to do is it's going to provide us with more increased holster damage, as well as reload speed, status chance, and holster damage duration. So this is going to increase our damage even further. Now you can run either heat or cold as well if you want a bit more tankiness, and perhaps you don't have access to Arcane Grace or Guardian. That might be an alternative, but you will be sacrificing some damage to that effect. So do bear that in mind when you are thinking about this. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and we will have a look at our On-Call Crewmate. Alright guys, so the purpose of the On-Call Crewmate is to just cover off those last 2 elements that we were missing. So I think, from memory, they were Magnetic and Toxin. So when it comes to getting an On-Call Crewmate, if you can get an elite one, that is great. However, if not, it doesn't really matter. You can still train your On-Call Crewmate to be whatever you need. So here, we just want to have maxed out combat and a decent level of endurance as well. That's kind of ideal. So do bear that in mind when you are doing this. You know, I think it's command rank 9 or 10 that you need to get yourself an elite member. But again, you can probably just get away with a normal one if you can max out combat and get a decent level of endurance in there. In terms of the weapon we're using, I would recommend a beam weapon. The increased damage that we are going to get from combat, plus 200%, is going to make any weapon we put on this insanely good. However, the beam weapons generally have very good ammo efficiency, and since the nerf to On-Call Crewmates, which means that they will use ammunition, it is always good to have something like a Kuvanucor or a Tenet Cycron. Tenet Cycron being, you know, infinite ammo, Kuvanucor being very ammo efficient. Always good to have something on. So this is the build that I'm running for that. Ruinous extension, so he can obviously shoot it from quite a way away. And then we've gone ahead and built for crits with, you know, semi-decent crit chance and very high crit multiplier. And we've got Toxin and Magnetic on with the innate radiation damage that the Kuvanucor does provide. The Kuvanucor on my particular one does have Toxin as its kind of, you know, extra element. However, I do want to just add more to that anyway, because by itself, just the normal toxin damage on the gun, is pretty low in this case. So yeah, we're just working with an increased toxin mod as well to buff it a bit. But yeah, that's pretty much the build for that, guys. And that pretty much sums up everything that you want to be getting your hands on, guys. So what we are going to do now, we are going to do one run through with the Rubico Prime, then we're going to quickly come back and we're going to swap out the Rubico Prime with the Zenith. I'll quickly show the build that I'll be using for that, and then we'll do one run with the Zenith, and then we'll probably round out the video after that. So I'll see you guys in a second. Alright guys, so we're in the back room here, ready to get our Profit Taker bounty underway. However, there's one more thing I want to point out, which I know people are going to ask me about because they always do, and that is, why am I running base damage mods on my weapon when Chroma's third ability, his Vex Armor, will more than suffice for the extra damage? So the reason for that, first and foremost, is that I do not former all of my weapons specifically for when I'm using Chroma, which means that it can be very difficult to fit on the mods that I would want in certain circumstances. So I often just put on those damage mods as a, well, I can't put anything else on here, so I'll just put on the base damage mods. That is why, essentially, you are seeing that, because I use them elsewhere in the game, not just with Chroma. Second reason is, and it's not a great reason, but again, it has happened to me where you perhaps can't proc your Vex Armor for whatever reason. You will still get a decent level of base damage from your weapon even without that Vex Armor activated. So, you know, if you run out of energy, if you get mag procs and you run out of energy and you can't activate your Vex Armor, or perhaps you're just not taking enough damage to your health to get your Vex Armor's damage up, having that base damage mod on does help a bit. So yeah, that's what I want to say about that. Let's just hop straight into this now. So we're going to go Profit Taker, Phase 4. As soon as the cutscene starts here, we're just going to spam left click to skip it, like so. And then we are going to get into the open world. So once we get in, we're going to follow a very straightforward series of events. First of all, we're going to find a nice central spot in between all of the Profit Taker spawn locations. And then once it spawns, we are going to go ahead and just land by it, activate our Vex Armor first for the tankiness, put down our On-Call Crewmate and put him on hold. Then we will come in and out of Operator to activate Poise so we don't get knocked over. And then we will activate the rest of our buffs and simply go to town. So Vex Armor, On-Call Crewmate, in, out, activate our other abilities, and then we can just go to town. So that's on our Rubico right here. Viral is on our Zor, so's Electricity, so's Blast, and so's Impact. We can get our Arc Gun out now. This is actually a really bad location for the Profit Taker to spawn in. It's probably my least favourite. So with our Arc Gun, we can go ahead and take out the limbs. Now he's going to throw out some pylons. We're going to come into our Arc Wing. Make sure your Vex Armor remains up for this. I'd probably recast it at this point. And then we're going to go over to where these pylons land. And we're going to shoot them out one by one. You can't shoot through these shields with the Rubico, so you're going to have to go over to them anyway. Then we'll jump back down, get our Arc Gun back out, take out the limbs again, like so, and then we are back to our normal weapons. Seems we've got a bit of a bug going on here with how the HP is looking. There we go. So once again, make sure your buffs stay up. He's going to throw out more pylons now. Let's reproc our Vex Armor, get into our Arc Wing, and chase those pylons. At this stage, they might require 2 hits. However, you can do a weapon swap to get them in 1 if you want. There we go. Now we come back. And yeah, we're just back to normal damage now. We don't need to get our Arc Gun out just yet. Oh, heat. Our heat damage is a bit low on this particular build. But there we go. Once again, taking out the limbs. And this is the last bit. As soon as we've done this, so let's make sure our poise stays up. We are going to come behind the Profit Taker. And you're going to keep an eye on his back left leg just here. That's what we are going to use to position ourselves. Hello. That could be annoying. Let's make sure he dies. So once he goes down here, we've got his left leg. We are going to go ahead and just stand just behind that and activate our 4th ability, Effigy. And then when he goes down and drops his loot, you can see we're right on top of where it landed. We got ourselves 250,000 credits, as you can see, instead of 125,000, as our effigy doubled the base damage, or sorry, the base credit amount. Now what you can do, whilst he's kind of dying, if you want to be very quick about things, is you can come onto your map and travel back to Fortuna. The teleport will obviously count down as you pick up your goods, and then you can just fly straight out. And there we go. That's the run with the Rubico done. And we managed to do that, even with a little chat at the end, in 3 minutes and 16 seconds. So that was about 3 minutes there with the Rubico, I'd say, if we were to do that swiftly and I wasn't talking the whole time. So what we'll do now, we'll quickly hop back to the Orbiter, take a look at the Zenith, and then we'll do one more run with the Zenith just so you guys can see kind of how it can be used, and then we will round off the video. So for those of you who don't know, the Zenith has infinite punch through, which means that when the Profit Taker throws out the pylons, you can shoot them through the shield, you can shoot them through mountains, you can even shoot them straight through the Profit Taker. So it is actually very useful if you just want to stay on the ground and don't want to bother flying around in your Archwing to take out those pylons. You can just stand there and use your Zenith to just shoot through the ground at the yellow markers that indicate where the pylons are. So it is quite good in that respect. Now, the build is quite spenny, and I probably wouldn't do it unless you have a Riven mod. My one is very good. It has crit damage and multi-shot with negative damage to Grineer, which obviously we're not going against for this particular mission, so it's always nice. And then, yeah, crit chance, you can see my crit multiplier from that increased crit damage nearly at 10 times on this. And we're just using the same elements that we were using on our Rubico before, so that we have everything covered off. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about it, guys. We do have Amalgam Serration on here for some increased sprint speed, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much if you just have this or the normal Serration. This is just for flying a bit faster in my Archwing. It's not going to add a whole lot, again, as we said, because Chroma's Vex Armor is going to be providing the bulk of our damage on this build. So do bear that in mind when we come to the fight. But yeah, let's just hop into it, guys, and see what kind of a difference it makes. Alright, guys, so now with our Zenith, once again, spam left click just to get through this cutscene. We'll head over here. Now, one extra thing that we're going to have to do to add to the sequence is we are going to have to fire out our Zenith's secondary fire ability, which is going to allow us to get that infinite punch through. So once again, we'll just fly central. There he is. Bit of a better position this time, so that's nice. Third, we'll get our On-Call Crewmate down on hold. Activate poise. Oops, I already did Vex Armor. First, second, this. Magnetic, that's on our On-Call Crewmate. Toxin, that's us. Nope. Okay. Oh yeah, that's on our On-Call Crewmate as well. Very nice. So now we should be able to just stay here, watch for where the pylons land. They are all going back there, which is nice. There's one. There's two. There's three. There's four. Then we can get our arc gun back out. So let's put it away, and once again we're just going to be swapping between weapons. Like so, arc gun out. Make sure our buffs stay up. There we go, arc gun away. Make sure our poise stays active. So we've got 3 on this side, 3 on that side. Let's start with these guys. There we go. Back to hitting the guy. That's on my Latum. There we go. And there we go. Fight over. Come to the back. Left leg again. Ooh, we got ourselves a Radiant Relic as well. That's nice. So let's go ahead, pop down our effigy. Can make sure our poise stays active actually. There it is. We can teleport back to Fortuna. And out we are. So, obviously we did that a bit smoother than the Rubico run. 2 minutes and 37 seconds. So we shaved about 30 to 45 seconds off of our time. Very, very quick. Still got ourselves the 250k credits there. And obviously if we got a combat buff, we could get even more. And as you saw with the Zenith, we don't have to worry about getting into our arc wing. It does make our lives so much easier just standing still and being able to kind of just shoot around with it. And then, yeah, we're already in position to get our arc gun back out to deal more damage to the Prophet Taker's limbs. So, yeah, something worth noting. But let's just do a quick round off now in the Orbiter. Okay, guys, so hopefully you now have a kind of well-rounded idea of what options you have available to you when it comes to farming credits. What I would say is that do not rush to get to Prophet Taker. The Index is a really good method of farming credits, and there are ways in which you can perhaps do it a bit easier and with less effort than I may have shown in this video, but you will have to go and look for those elsewhere, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, you know, don't rush for Prophet Taker. Prophet Taker is really an end game credit farm in order to do it well, at least. So make sure that you have all the gear necessary to begin with before you try and do it. Otherwise, you are going to get frustrated and you will be doing it slower sometimes than if you were to just do the Index with one of the builds that I showed, or even a slightly better build than I showed. You know, my Rhino, as we saw, had like nothing on it during that run, and we still managed to get ourselves the additional 200,000 credits in about 4 minutes. So it is a really, really good build, and you can take it for multiple waves as well. That build, you don't have to just do one and repeat. You can do, you know, 2, 3, 4, even 5 sometimes just with that build and the Rubico Prime. So definitely bear that in mind. You know, for people who are like really, really keen to get to Prophet Taker, just focus on the Index first, and then when you've gathered up all of the gear that we've shown during this video, then and only then would I suggest you try and get into Prophet Taker credit farming. It does require a bit of mechanical skill, knowing when to do things and, you know, how to use the Zenith, getting shots through the floor and stuff like that. But for the most part, it is actually fairly straightforward, and once you've repeated it a few times, you will get the hang of it very quickly. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video, guys. If you do want to see more in-depth guides like this, then do leave a like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below as to what you would like to see. I'm more than happy to do them. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next one, guys. I'll see you later.